Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Death Clock. It's 8 p.m., it's Wednesday night, and the Death Clock starts now. First off, I'd like to introduce my two co-hosts. Sitting next to me to the left is no other than the Ringo to my George. Get it, George? That was funny. Maelstrom, say hello to everybody.
Hello.
Sitting to my far left is the George to my Ringo, PG Semi-Automagic. Say hello, George.
Hello, George.
And tonight we have on the Death Clock, we're joined by Dan from Tectonic Craft Studios, I should say. Introduce yourself, Dan.
Hi, everybody. My name's Dan from Tectonic Craft Studios, and I make cool stuff.
He really does. I spent a lot of money on cool stuff this weekend, so I'll be the first to tell you that happens. All right.
Was greatly appreciated.
Thank you very much. All right, so the things we're going to talk about tonight, we've only got a couple of topics. It's going to be a 1-hour podcast, but there is hella lot of things going down right now. I'm not going to lie to you. If you are part of the privateer press war machine world, all hell has broken loose for the last couple of weeks. We've already done 3 podcasts, I want to say at this point, about Mark III. But of course, privateer press is not comfortable sitting back on their laurels and letting us all just wait for 2 months for all the good stuff to come. They are feeding us small little tidbits on a regular occasion. So let's talk a bit about some of the stuff that has, quote-unquote, leaked, has been let out into the wild from Privateer Press this week. PG Semi-Automagic, let's start with new news about rec markers. What have you heard about rec markers?
Well, they're gone is the short answer to that. Rec markers were one of the things that was in Mark 1 that and really didn't even appear in hordes. Mark 1 horde. So it was gone immediately. But when they went into Mark 2, there were a bunch of mechanics that relied on the rec marker. There are several models, especially Crixian models, that can do very interesting things with rec markers. They can steal weapons, they can create new jacks, stuff like that. In fact, in Signar, there was one point that Darius could rebuild a rec marker back into a jack. So they needed to keep those around for legacy reasons. When they moved to Mark III, they just decided, screw all this noise, we're just getting rid of them. They, as far as I can tell, it was not the intention that Crix players could have +6 on a hill. Since you can't put a wall on a hill, it was determined that being able to make a rec marker on a hill probably wasn't a good place to be.
Dan, I'm going to go to you. As a guy who produces stuff for Privateer Press, losing the rec markers, good or bad?
It's not great for me, actually. I had, in fact, just for the SOO, I made new rec markers, and I just recently remade a special bone chicken rec marker just to capitalize on this rules exploit. So now I have a very pretty small feet token.
All right. Well,
and some rec-looking bases, I guess. But it totally makes sense. Like, I think from a balance perspective, if they had to give one to hordes, like what would that be? And then you'd be adding in that set of messy mechanics into into a portion of the game that people already feel is very powerful and already has hard defenses anyways. So I think they made the right choice ultimately.
You heard it there. So Tectonic Dan, pissed off but not at exactly the same time. All right, so let's talk about the new news on Frenzy mechanics. Maelstrom, you must have read up on the new Frenzy mechanics. How do you feel about they simplified it, they streamlined it, they made it simple. All you got to do now is if you Frenzy, you just charge the nearest target and do
That's
it.
it.
That's it.
Charge the closest target.
Shake.
Oh, yes, you shake all effects.
Shake all effects,
right.
which is, because there was ways around getting yourself to Frenzy. You could lay down a bunch of effects, basically stopping you from doing it. How do you feel about that change?
I have mixed feelings. I think it simplifies it, so it's good, because I always had a bit of a problem with that whole mechanic anyway. So I spent extra time making sure my beast didn't Frenzy. However, sometimes there was times I wanted a beast to Frenzy. Just for that boosted. But now that's gone.
Well,
so.
you still get a free charge attack. So it's
You
still
do get
gonna
a
be
free charge
boosted.
attack, yeah. As long as you hit, you're good. And I guess now before, did you get boosted regardless of whether you were within the 3 inches?
That's correct. You got boosted to hit and boosted damage.
So
no matter what.
now, if you're not within the 3 inches to get an actual charge, you're not going to get the boosted damage.
Well, it's going to act like any other charge.
Yeah.
If you did not move
Yeah.
the 3 inches, you didn't get the boost.
right.
So gone are the day of your shredders.
Shredder missiles.
Shredder missiles.
Yeah.
So I guess that's kind of a blow for Legion. Legion. Poor
puppy.
Legion.
Pricks and Legion. Oh no!
Because those factions aren't legit or anything.
No. Here, they are fair and balanced.
Yes.
Yeah.
They are fair and balanced.
All right. So, update on standard bearers. Let's talk a bit about what that update is. The basics, from what I understand, is all standard bearers are going to give a +2 to command range. And that means you lose +2 if you lose your standard bearer, which makes them a little more important. And apparently the UAs are being balanced to deal with that. So let's say you were a 10 command range on your UA before, it might go down to a 9 or an 8, let's say. So suddenly the standard bearer is kind of important as a member of your army. You no longer care about it. George, good or bad change?
I think it's a good change. And now you can't really separate this change from 2 other changes we heard about, I think, just today. One being that the FA has gone to U on all attachments.
Right.
So you no longer have this weirdness where you're going to have one group that can spread out to 12 inches and one group that can spread out to 10 inches. So all UAs, all units will be able to get their UAs, and they will also be able to have up to 3 weapon attachments. And I've heard things variously like that certain models will become weapon attachments that are currently sort of a different unit. Mm-hmm. So there's some obvious ones already where you know like the rocket launchers in the Death Star and stuff like that. But there are also other things that are now a UA or a unit attachment of some other type that will become a weapon attachment.
Okay.
And that will give you more flexibility in a unit.
They also say that all weapon attachments are all going to be moved up to UA3 or
FA3.
FA3, so that basically every weapon.
No, not FA3. 3 per unit.
Right, 3 per unit. Right. Sorry, not FA3, but every unit can have 3 weapon attachments. Every unit will now be able to have a commander unit, or whatever you want to call it, an officer model, flag model, or yeah. So there's some changes there, which is interesting because we thought basically units would be all nerfed back to make Jax a little bit better, but it seems like maybe that's not the case. Dan, are you excited about the change from infantry machine to big giant stompy robots as a player, or are you kind of like in the middle on this one?
Oh, absolutely excited for the new focus back on Jax and beasts. Everyone I've talked to in the 4 or 5 years I've been playing always says, yeah, I really like to use big, like, stompy robots and savage beasts. But, they end up running, 40 Vein Thralls and making me sad. I think that, they're bigger models, they're more fun to paint, they can do more things. Like, power attacks is, one of the main things that sets this game apart from other games. They really add a lot of diversity and tactics to the tabletop, and it adds a lot of, as a filthy casual, I like being able to do cool, weird stuff with my models. So, trampling through your stuff is great.
Yeah.
Throwing models is awesome. My absolute favorite thing is throwing models.
We don't do nearly enough throwing at all. There is rumors that there'll be changes to power attacks. We've heard rumors that power attacks are changing. Mm-hmm. We haven't seen or actually seen any of those changes in the wild, so it's still an unknown. We can only go by the rumors at this point. Do we know what any of those rumors are right now about power attacks?
Realistically, they're all up in the air.
Right.
I have heard actually conflicting things about what power attacks are going to be, so there's nothing I would want to repeat in case we gave bad info.
Which we're apt to do.
Well, we are, but the one thing everybody has agreed on, though they don't agree on how this will happen, is that the simplification that we saw with frenzying is they are equally simplifying things like throws and tramples. There are thoughts that they might all sort of become one thing,
Right.
like a trample and a charge they're all sort of that same distance movement and everything. It's they're saying like 1 and 2-handed throws. It won't be 1 and 2-handed throws. It will be there is a throw power attack, and it's this way, and you maybe get a boost if you have an extra hand or something.
Well, and I think
or something
legitimately
like
the reason why we don't see power attacks as often in the game as we would like to see them is because you lose all your initials, which kind of that's huge, especially with something that has 3 attacks or 4 attacks. Even losing your initials hurts. To kind of add on to that, we do have a confirmation in the change of rate of fire on beasts and jacks.
Yeah, this is huge.
Is it just beasts and jacks, or does it include
as far as we
casters,
understand it so far, just beasts and jacks. But
Interesting.
I would be willing to say...
I think the rate of fire change is going to be across the board.
I think it's... Yeah, if you're going to simplify the rules...
I think it came up in the case of beasts and jacks because they're the ones that had to pay focus. Right. So it used to be that focus manipulators and sorcerers were able to use focus or fury to be able to give themselves more ranged attacks.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the way this has changed, we've had confirmation that if you have rate of fire 3 on your card, you now have 3 initial shots.
Yeah.
So the big difference there is you no longer have to spend focus to get those extra shots. Now, not all things that have, say, rate of fire 3 now will have rate of fire 3 in the future.
Right.
In fact, we had one example, the Manticore, which currently has a rate of fire 3, will now have D3 shots, rate of fire of D3.
Okay.
So what that triggers in my head is that they are going to they will probably remove the auto fire and sustained fire rules, and they will replace both of them with the rate of fire being D3 or D6 or whatever. Yeah. Okay. That way you have one rule that eats up 3 rules. Yeah. Rate of
it
fire
eats up more than 3. It also eats up a bunch of those models that get like a second shot by some whatever you want to call it, snapshot or whatever you want to call it. Now you just give them rate of fire 2 on their bow. Now you don't have to worry about creating a rule or creating a new term to do just give a second shot. Okay, so that moving right along, there was another report that came out today. Another what do you call that?
The Insider.
Insider. It's too many different names.
Oh, it was good.
It was a good one today, and this is amazing. Really, we're getting like one a day right now. It's
and we know it's already confirmed we'll get one tomorrow.
So, okay, we got to see the cards. We got to see
our first cards.
First bunch of cards.
With the giant portraits.
Portraits, slight art changes. But what's more important is we got to see the new point costs. Mm-hmm. We got to see some of the new statistics. We know that the Mountain King might actually be legit now with a Mat 6 instead of a Mat 5. He's still stuck with a Rat 5, but he's a Mat 6. Dan, what faction do you play, and did you get a chance to get a card today that made you excited?
I play Circle, and I did not get any cards today, but I'm... Oh, sorry.
Cops are coming for Dan.
There's neighborhood here. So I play Circle, so I'm very confident that I'm going to get some wonderful goodies when they start revealing things for me.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Circle's got there's so much in the toolbox, so it'll be really cool to see some of the... there's going to be good stuff. Hopefully, what I think everybody, as another co-Circle player, we're all hoping that the Wold Monkey gets awesome buffs, too. Yeah. I want my Wold Monkey to look cool and be on the table.
Yes. Mother of God, yes, please.
And we also have, we're looking forward to the Lightning Chicken, which apparently, if you look...
Simplification. One of the things they've done for simplification is they found rules that are already the same amongst a large amount of cards, and they've changed that into one of the icons, which is going to mean that the icon cheat sheets from the past I really think are going to make a Mark III comeback.
Yeah.
Because that was always one of those things that new players already had a problem with. What are all these little round circles? One of the things they've done for simplification is they've found rules that are already the same amongst a large amount of cards, and they've changed that into one of the icons, which is going to mean that the icon cheat sheets from the past, I really think are going to make a Mark III comeback.
Yeah.
Because that was always one of those things that new players already had a problem with. What are all these little round circles? And now we're seeing Assault as one of those.
Blessed.
We're seeing Blessed, and we're seeing Disruption.
That also tells me that those, and not just that they're putting those, making them icons, that's telling me that those powers are going to be more prevalent in the game. Like, they gave Assault to Trenchers. I don't believe Trenchers had Assault universally before.
They gave Assault to Iris.
They gave Assault to Iris.
Oh my god.
That tells me that they're going to put, that those powers are going to show up more universally in the game, which means more attacks in the game, really. Blessed means more, if Blessed's showing up more often, well, I mean, Menoth, I think half of them were Blessed already, but that tells me that if they're willing to add more powers for simplification, that means that those units are going to be worth more to us from a game mechanic standpoint. Super, super exciting. And they already tested it with Giant King. They gave Giant King Assault. Mountain King Assault, sorry. So maybe that was kind of a testing point. Like, how much does this change a model to give it Assault? It still takes coordination to do an Assault run. You still have to it has to be an alpha. So maybe it's not a crazy overpowering thing if it's done at if it only gets to really be done once per game.
One of my favorite little changes is the change to Spellbreaker. Or they may actually have renamed her ability. It used to be you shoot off someone's upkeep that's keeping them alive with Iris, and it's just gone. They shoot you, it's gone. Now Spellbreaker allows the person being hit to take D3 damage to protect their upkeep. So that's going to be...
That's interesting.
That's going to be really neat, because there are many times I'll take a D3 to keep Arcane Shield on me.
Big time.
Because it's not the Iris shot I'm worried about. It's the big guns from somebody else.
Yeah, there's a risk reward there.
So So what we're going to discuss quickly. Sorry, Dan, just interject whenever you want. But we need to talk quickly about how Death Clock is going to change. The show, not the Death Clock itself.
The actual Death Clock.
Death Clock. The show itself is going to change a bit because we've got 2 months. We're gonna keep broadcasting on a weekly basis. We don't want to leave you guys in the lurch. And of course, we love working with new people, and we made all kinds of new friends at the SOO. So we want to bring everybody we met on the show at one point or another, much like Dan is on the show this week. But the problem is that it's kind of worthless for us to do Focus. The first one. So you can all expect that for the next 6 to 8 weeks, until we get more and more rules, new rules that we know are solidified and in place, and we know the synergies with those rules, that Focus is not going to happen on the show. Secondly, as soon as Mark III drops, we're gonna sort of, me in particular, but I'm gonna be grabbing one of you two guys to go back to doing our what we call Mifton Semi Bleep Shit Up. Old school episodes where what we do is we play games and we let you guys come on the stream with us and tell us what we're doing wrong. So as we get more and more rules, we may feel more and more confident to do some of those. But the thing is that these things last for a while, so I don't really want people researching how focus manipulation works in Mark III and watch an episode that makes no sense, if that makes sense. So that's going to change in the next few weeks. But what we will be doing is doing Death Clock. We'll be showing up. We'll telling you there's pretty much a news item each day. So that's like 7 news items that we can talk about. And we're going to try to bring on a lot of our friends who do hobby stuff, guys like Dan who do stuff that is universal to the game itself, to talk a bit about some of the cool stuff that they're working on. And last but not least, I think we're going to be doing more roundtable discussions on sort of the future of the game and the changes that are happening as we go. So you can expect guys like Marc Andre to come on and really give us their opinions, those sort of expert opinions. before we move on to that, I just want to thank everybody who came out to the SOO this weekend. The guys who helped me out on the stream all weekend long. The haters on the internet that complained that we didn't know anything. The lovers that came out and just made that whole experience amazing. I think if we do our calculations, we were seeing about 100 to 150 different people a day. Live on the stream and taking part, and that's a really big thing for for Moose Machine, but it's also a big thing for the game itself. If we're seeing numbers like that for our little podcast, that means that there's a huge amount of people out there playing the game, and it's all about growing the game at this point. And I think that Mike Long said it best. What's so exciting about Mark III is that we should see a whole bunch of new players getting involved, a whole bunch of sort of rejuvenated interest in the game, and with that rejuvenated interest comes an interest in the competitive side. Dan, over to you. Talk a bit about Mark III and what you sort of see as the future of the game itself from here. Now that you're excited about Mark III, do you think that's going to bring in new players? Should we expect that?
Oh, definitely. I've talked to, so I travel a real lot for what I do. I go to about 20 shows a year. And so I end up having friends with game stores all over the country, like California, Seattle, Texas, Virginia, all over the Midwest, New England. And a lot of them are real excited. People who haven't carried Project Press ever, people who carried it and dropped it, people who haven't even heard of it, are picking up and they're excited because of the deals on the retail packages, because of the contents of those new box sets, and because of the and because of the equilateral action for them to make an effort to get people involved. And so stores are excited, and a lot of old salt is coming back out. I've talked to people who haven't played in 2 years. Oh, back in my day, and I've heard a lot of those. And oh well, maybe I'll try it again. This sounds good. I think it's good. Personally, the rules changes they're talking about so far are things that people have kind of carped about for months and months at this point. It's good. I think the rules are helping people out a lot, and I know it's good. I want to put more druids on the table and more war beasts.
Well, I think it's also important at this stage. We're at, I want to say, year 6 of Mark III. And anytime you get to, Mark II. Anytime I kept saying 10 years originally, but it's 10 years of the game really overall, as the game being popular. Anytime you get to that year 6 point, things are starting to stagnate a bit in the metas, particularly in the competitive side. I'm talking to some of the competitive players, as we did this week, and you played some highly competitive players this week.
Did I ever?
I think generally, let's talk to you. Generally, is it an excited feeling?
Oh yeah, I think so for sure. Everybody that I talked to about it seemed super. There wasn't a whole lot of salt like I thought there would be. Everybody seems generally excited and super happy for what changes are coming.
Awesome. All right, so we did forget to mention one news item, which is is it a rumor or is it a confirmation?
It's currently a rumor.
So the rumor is that melee ranges may have changed. So give us the rumor there. Remember,
it's on the card too, right? The new cards have a range stat on the weapon.
On the melee weapon.
Range stats on the melee weapon.
On the melee
I haven't
weapon.
had a chance to study those little
while he's
yet.
looking it up.
But it is what I think it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so if it is what I think it is, then what we're going to see is jacks and other very large critters having a 1-inch range instead of the half-inch.
The Crick Slayer has a range of 1 now.
So jacks get a 1-inch range. Reach still has 2-inch range, and everything else has a 0.5-inch range. But that means medium and large base creatures can now, which kind of makes sense when you think about it. That's always one of my the hardest things for me was
the
learning.
infantry still has range 1 as well.
Okay, well I guess it depends on what it is. It might be a weapon.
The size of their weapon.
It's the size of their weapon, because the trencher infantry on the bayonet has a range 1. And Iris, on her bayonet and saber, has a range of 0.5. So it's not even going to just be on the just be on the actual infantry what their range is.
So what's interesting about that in general, guys, is that each different model could have a different reach, a reach stat, if that makes sense. And giving trenchers a 1-inch reach, that's solid. Like, that's interesting. That's could be really, really cool if you play it right.
Yeah, well, having people... It has always been extremely silly when you saw... these beautiful gigantic weapons that had
long swords or
exactly, and they had the
same reach as
someone with like a little club. And that has always been very, very silly. Having this change, I think, is going to be really good, especially for jacks. Non-reach jacks always had a real big problem getting enough attacks in on infantry. So you take your big giant jack and you run him in, and he kills 2 things with his 2 initials, and then sits on 3 focus. So that has always kind of been a problem. Now with that inch, you're going to have to space out a lot farther if you want to not just be myrtleized by a jack, even a most basic one.
All right, guys. Let's. Sorry, Dan, you want to say something?
I was going to say also it's going to change how you play against shacks against infantry. So just this is a boatload or like this.
We're losing Dan. He's breaking up. Dan, you're breaking up. Why, Dan? Why?
I couldn't say.
Okay.
Am I still here?
You're sort of breaking up. We're going to take a quick break, guys. We'll make this an edit point in the video. Sorry for the guys that are on the cast. We're going to try to get Dan's connection back up to full par. We'll take a 2-minute break. For those guys watching the stream live, you can come back in a couple minutes and we should have things up and running. So let's put the news... Let's put the news aside for today. We've got lots of cool things to talk about today. We've got Dan from Tectonic Studios. Dan, let's start by... Why don't you tell us a bit about what you do and how you got into what you do?
Okay, well, what I do is I design and manufacture laser-cut wooden crafts for War Machine, Warhammer, Malifaux Infinity, Age of Sigmar, all kinds of stuff. Basically, all the minis games out there. And I design terrain. I started with terrain, and I moved on to objective markers and scatter terrain, and then display boards, and then player aids, and then display racks, and then turret racks. And so I kind of do a bit of everything at this point. I got a very big folder full of designs at this point. And basically, I started this because I've always liked drawing. I've always liked fancy stuff. And I went to school for architecture, so I have a professional degree in laser cutting little buildings. And that, combined with the housing crash of 2008, made it so that it was very easy to pursue your own work instead of going to an office.
How many?
And so
how many cons or events do you do a year? And what is it like going to that many cons a year?
It's pretty great, actually. I'm really glad to be doing it. I go to about 20 shows a year. Right now, I'm on week 2 of 5 shows in 5 weeks, which is pretty brutal. This is the most shows this is the most shows in a row I've had ever, and it's really, really quite interesting because I'm barely ever home at this point. So home is basically like a kitchen and a bathroom, and studio is about half work and half like couches and board game tables, because we have so much work to get going, to stock up the shows, to keep the web store flowing, that if we want to entertain, we want to see our friends, they got to come in. And it's pretty cool, actually. It feels very bohemian. It feels very designerish.
That's awesome. Since you're going to so many cons, which do you have a favorite con? You don't have to say the SOO. Do you have a favorite con that you've gone to, or you feel that is coming up that you're really going to enjoy?
So I end up liking a bunch of different shows for a bunch of different reasons. I think Adepticon has to take the cake as my most favorite because it is the mecca of wargaming. Adepticon is thousands of nerds who only care about pewter paint and dice. It's amazing. Everyone there knows about armor saves. Everyone knows about morale checks. Everyone there knows about cutting some. It's a lot of talent, and a lot of excitement, a lot of energy. So if you ever get a chance, even like a remote possibility, go to Adepticon. It is the best. Some other favorites are Gen Con. Obviously, it's a crazy, amazing, insane experience. Texas Games Con is an old favorite of mine. TempleCon's an old favorite of mine, and that is interesting because this year that's going through a big change. They moved to August from February, and that's out in Rhode Island. Captain Con is a new and very popular convention in Rhode Island that some of the same folks put on. So next weekend I'm going to Kingdom Con, which my friend Ross Thompson runs in San Diego, and it is the wildest convention. It is so much fun. It is equal parts house party and gaming convention and like Kiki Paradise. I don't know how else to explain it. It's well worth plane tickets. It's well worth time spent. It's really great, folks. It's a lot of games, and it's a lot of well-run, well-organized games too. So Kingdom Con is a special place in my heart, but they all kind of do. And besides that, I end up going.
Do you drive to all of these cons? Is that like, do you like have like a, like an old fashioned 1940s shaggin' wagon you're taking to all these cons, or do you like, are you flying most of the time?
Most of the time I'm driving. Most of the shows I go to are in the Northeast. I think the farthest I drive is Chicago, because 16 hours, anything more than 16 hours in a car is too painful. So like mentally, physically, emotionally, like hygienically, it's like you just feel gross driving out that long. So Chicago, I go to like Chicago, Boston, and DC are about as far as I drive. If I'm going to shows in Texas or Seattle, I will fly. We're flying to San Diego next week for Kingdom Con, sorry. And I think we take the train for Warmington weekend because it's a nice, relaxing 20-hour trip.
All right, so Dan, the next question we have for you is give us your how to leave my job and go to cons for the rest of my life 101. What was your sort of like, give us your story as far as you went to school for architecture, but did you have a regular job and one day you were like, sweet, I'm making enough money that I could do this. Tell us that story.
That story is not particularly a sane story, honestly. I was not doing architecture when I first graduated because the job market was pretty barren. The housing market had just crashed in 2008 and had not yet recovered by the time I graduated. And I had graduated in an off-season in December. So the market was, A, first of all, it was barren to begin with, and B, it was flooded with interns or students who would work for basically peanuts. And I was like, well, I'm trying to make a living here. So I ended up doing contracting for a bit. And what happened next was a very fortuitous series of events. The first of which was that my local game store closed. It was a kind of a bit of drama and a falling out between the owners and his core group of, once his friends. And so he gave up the store. He sold it to his friends, but didn't give them any of the terrain. And I was like, well, geez, I love this place, so I'm going to drop some cabins and some ruins and some towers. I'm just going to give them to them so they have something on the tables. And maybe that'll pay off for me someday. And then about 6 months later, I got my first order, which was even before I was a business. I was just like a dude doing this with like hobby machines or like maker spaces and stuff. And it's like, so we want to give you like $1,000 to make us some terrain for these like 12 tables. I was like, sure, I'm mostly broke. And then I did what I do for pretty much everything. I dove in, head first, eyes wide, grinning, and didn't look back.
Okie dokie. Oh, sorry. Continue.
Sorry. Yeah, we continue. It's fine. It's not much of a story.
No, I figured it went from there. Now you travel from con to con selling your stuff. Okay, so you and I talked briefly at the con about the sort of equipment you need because with some of these tools becoming more and more accessible, lasers in particular, wood cutting and plastic cutting type of stuff. If I wanted to get into that business, if I wanted to get into the business of being able to cut terrain, cut tokens, that kind of stuff, what are the things I need to know? And like, what are some of your hurdles? What are the what is it that sets what you've done apart from just any Joe Schmo that's gone out and bought a laser?
Geez, kind of a loaded question. Well, you need a couple $1,000s to get a machine. You need to know how to use CAD. And it's basically it. Like, it's not a terribly innovative market, honestly. It's not, like, laser cutters were made to cut things. CAD was made to draw things for lasers to cut. So it's really just a re-implementation of things that they've been using for a while. I think online you can get cutters for anywhere between $2,000 and $40,000 depending on what you're trying to cut, and it's not even that not hard at all. There's a whole like section of laser cutters on eBay, I think, nowadays. And there's a really big used and refurbished market as well. If you're doing anything from China, I would say don't, because it is wildly inconsistent, and it is sometimes not all their safety equipment is intact. So if you're going to, I would definitely do your research before you want to do some of that. Get involved with this. Or I would encourage someone to check out, there's a lot of folks, it's not hard to get going with some CAD. You can download a couple of different free programs online and just draw up some stuff. And maybe you just want to make a quick infinity board with some hexagon covered buildings. I would check out a makerspace, honestly, something local, because they're coming up all over the place nowadays. And for those of you unfamiliar with makerspaces, basically it is a bunch of techno hippies who get together and start building machines to build other machines. And it's part tool share, part design collective, part brain trust. Really, they're really great, and you can get a membership, and you can use 3D printers or laser cutters or woodworking tools. And a lot of times they'll have classes as well, so you can learn how to do pottery or machine steel or wood carving. Anyways, just a couple different options.
I think you're really selling yourself short on the design end.
Yeah, I was
really,
going to say.
Any Yahoo can buy a laser cutter or go and find somebody with one. I've done it myself. Where the actual talent comes in is all the amazing little cuts that you make that take a flat piece of wood or plastic, and there's a house at the other end, or a objective marker, or a tray. Because one of the things, because I'm constantly interested in manufacturing and all the weirdnesses therein, I watched you as you were getting set up, and you pulled 3 or 4 sheets out of material out of a big rubber bin, and a couple minutes later there was a tray with enough spots for a 2-list tournament. And that actual design to go, exactly how big should how much slop do you need on this type of part, or how do these 7 little walls all fit together so that the outside of the tray actually has some rigidity and all the models don't fall out the bottom. Was that a lot of trial and error, or is that something you sit down and you very heavily plan out ahead of time? What's the kind of process on that?
Well, I did go to school to be an architect, so that certainly helps.
So first thing, go to university
school,
for an architecture.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Go to school, kids. Don't do drugs.
So, Dan, we know that you love War Machine. You're a War Machine player. Are there any other games you designed for, or is it pretty much just the Warhammer Hordes universe?
No, I actually made for a bunch of stuff. I started out with 40K and fantasy. War Machine has been very good to me, and so I've been getting into that a lot more recently. I also make stuff for Malifaux. I do some stuff, a couple of different little accessories for board games and things that are coming out, like Kingdom Death or Round Bones and stuff like that. But basically, it comes down to whenever I play, see a game that I like, I pick up some stuff and I say, well, now I want to make things for this game. What can I make? And there it goes. So,
any games on your radar right now that you love that the rest of us may not have tried yet? Anything that's kind of pulling you in at the moment?
I have so many things on my horizon right now. It's bonkers.
That doesn't sound like a bad thing at all.
Yeah, not at all. I know. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Nope, go.
So I kind of break it down into three groups. I have. So there's fantasy stuff that I love, because fantasy is my jam. I love fantasy, wizards and elves and dragons, all that business. I love it. So Age of Sigmar, you bet. Kings of War, absolutely. Frostgrave, I am super excited about Frostgrave because you can use any models you want for it. It's a fantasy skirmish game where you have a wizard, an apprentice, and a bunch of goons treasure hunting in this ancient frozen city looking for magical goods. And so I'm really excited to work on that. I'm working on a whole bunch of terrain actually that would work really well for this whole genre, like this whole collection of games. Age of Sigmar, Kings of War, Frostgrave, and also Malifaux. Malifaux, I recently got my crew built up, and I'm looking for games, and I just recently moved to an area that has that same wonderful game store that I helped out at the beginning. They now have like a thriving community for all these games. Infinity is very exciting. I have some stuff planned for that. Oh, I'm sorry. So that's one section. The next section is sci-fi. So here's where you have your Infinity, your Drop Zone Commander, your 40K. Actually, a game I picked up called Ethereum. It's by Anvil 8 Games, and it's really, really cool looking. Basically, you play a hacker who goes into the Matrix and starts warping virtual reality to help mine some sort of digital resources. I'm not totally square on all the details, but it's amazing and I love it. And I can't wait to keep working on that with them. And Dead Zone's in there because, again, skirmish games are something that I really enjoy. And as a filthy casual, I'm all about the narrative, I'm all about the hobby, I'm all about the fluff.
God damn you filthy casuals.
Absolutely.
So I guess the next question is, every one of these games, like we saw your new Guild Ball tray that you were showing off at the con.
Right.
For the Guild Ball, the Guild Ball guys, super excited about that. I think everybody bought one. I think all three of us bought one of your tournament trays, or at least I bought one.
No, I bought a dice tray.
Oh yeah, George bought
a
a dice tray. Maelstrom couldn't sell enough T-shirts, and his wife wouldn't let him buy anything.
Next time.
So I think we all go home after our first tournament, and we went out to the dollar store and we bought, like a cafeteria tray with some paper on it to carry our army around. Then our army fell over, and we lost all of our armies and things broke.
George brings them specifically to each.
Tell me a bit about what goes into what makes the perfect tournament or army tray. Like when you first go at the design, what is the first things that you think about? And sort of, give some advice to us plebes that are going to go out and try to build our own before we go and buy yours because we failed miserably.
You can feel I might not want to answer that question, right?
Well, we're all going to end up buying yours anyway eventually. But what is it that, like, when you look at when you look at building a tray, what are the things what's your sort of ideals that you go for, and just tell us a bit about the design process, I guess, is what we're looking for.
Mostly anything I design, I look at it like a tool, like what do I need this thing to do, and how can I make it do that? in how many different ways, and then what ways do those work, which ones of them don't. So if I need a tray that needs to do, if someone wants to run Body and Soul first, they can fuck themselves. Second, I say, okay, I need 96 spots at 30 mil each, so I look at my space constraints. I look at how much physical surface area can I put onto a tray. It's not. I can only fit about 70. I think 82 is the most if I do nothing else. 85, so not quite, which is good because screw those guys still. And,
haha, you have to carry your
or
last
like if someone's
unit.
like, all right, I'm running 3 colossals. I'm like, all right, well, how can I put 3 colossals onto a tray? I need to think about this model weighs like 1.5 pounds. And this is a 2-foot long board. So how do I navigate those things? It's really about just trying to consider all the parts of an equation and then start solving for it. A little bit like math, but fun instead.
I think the last question we have for you tonight is, and you already answered a bit about the things you were personally excited about for Mark III, but do you, now that you're starting to see some of the rollout for Mark III and some of the new things, now that you know that, for example, the zones and objectives are still going to be around, do you have any sort of new exciting things planned for us for Mark III?
Oh, yes, I have buckets and buckets and buckets of new stuff planned for Mark III. So I started sketching these up actually even before I heard of Mark III. I want to make a new set of tournament zones, ones that had 4 different themes, basically 2 themes for War Machine, 2 themes for Hordes. So there's a little bit of variety. Because what I really like doing is drawing. I like making all the cool stuff. So honestly, like making a board it's useful, but not as like mentally engaging for me as like figuring out how to incorporate steampunk elements into a 12-inch circle, and that still delineates the space that needs to, but can also fit into a bag, and it also looks like it's part of the terrain. That's where I can start to like flex my design muscles a little bit and start playing with what I can draw. Sorry, that was to bounce back to your earlier question. So new tournament zones, new flags, new objectives. Definitely looking to release a new terrain set. I've actually got 4 different terrain sets planned, including one's kind of a generic like forest, hill, rough terrain, water effect, wall, obstruction. Pardon me. And I'm looking to have all these released with Mark III in June.
Sweet.
Either right before or have them trickle out so people can kind of have something to occupy their time since they're waiting for Mark III to come out.
Yeah. Some of the things I want to shout out about some of the things that caught my eye this week that I don't know if some of our viewers know about. If you have a chance to go visit Dan's website, if you meet him at a con, check out some of the houses that he has. They're absolutely incredible. One of the things I absolutely adored was the objective markers that have a way to track the damage on the objective. Super, super cool.
Yeah, I wanted to buy one of the larger objective marker rotators, but he was out. It was...
Well, George, I mean, you are a terrain builder. You love this kind of stuff, especially stuff that involves a little bit of building on the back end. What were some of the things that Dan had that you got super excited about?
Oh, all kinds of stuff. A lot of the terrain I loved. One of my favorite ones was the altar. Mm-hmm. That one I really enjoyed. The house with the with all the way all the shingles went onto the top, so that there's a slightly curved roof out of straight bits, and that type of design always amazes me, getting curves out of straight bits. And then the other thing, as I was talking about, is for those markers, the zone markers, he has one that is larger and has multiple layers sandwiched together, so you can actually see the gears inside it. And I was like, "Oh,
they were both drooling over that one."
Yeah, this is the part on Moose Machine where we get to gush over what you're doing.
Yeah, all the awesome stuff.
Literally, I think I went over about 8 times during the course of the day just to look at stuff. From a hobbyist standpoint, some of the things that I think everybody needs to check out is the base inserts, because I think that is something that, every single hobbyist is looking for that base that is different from everybody else's. And honestly, I don't know how new those are on the market, Dan, but I don't think a lot of people, I haven't seen a lot of other hobbyists put those base inserts in, and they're really, really cool and paintable. So check those out. Are those relatively new?
I've had those for about 4 years. But I've been releasing new ones right along. Some of the newest ones I have are a brick road, so it just looks kind of like bricks, red or yellow depending. I've got a mosaic Nexus tile, which looks like it could be a nice temple floor, and I've got some really cool ones that are called Divine Harmonics, and they are very let's say they're prime base inserts to be the perfect cog in your
your army that shall not be named.
Yeah, actually,
and if you play them, you're a cock. So some of the cool things also. I loved some of those, and I think from a hobbyist standpoint, I think we all need to start looking at the funny part is you hear about it all the time. Where did you get that cool base? Yeah. Well, spread your net a little bit wider. There's some really cool stuff out there on the market that maybe you didn't know about, and some of it might have come from Dan. Any more questions from you guys before we go? And anybody that's on the stream, the few of you that are hanging out with us tonight, I know it's been a while since we've done this, so some people didn't remember about tonight, but if you have questions on the stream, feel free to ask. If you're not on the stream tonight, you're listening to this on the podcast. If you ask questions either on our underneath, on our YouTube channel, on Muse on Minis, on the forum, or whatever, we'll make sure that those questions get to Dan and he'll answer them. But do you guys have any more questions before we go to the lightning round?
No, I think he's gone into lots of great stuff. I would just encourage everybody to hit his website, Dan's website, check out everything that's on there. And hopefully we'll get to see all the new zones. Oh, one thing I did want to tell you, Dan, is that it has been confirmed in places that aren't quite as public as they might be that zones and objectives and flags are staying the sizes they currently are in the new mark, and that you will need an extra flag marker. So make sure it's sets of 4, not sets of 3.
You should check out our website. I have the basic objective set. Already got them.
Perfect.
Ooh, he's one step
Also,
ahead.
Something worth noting is that I am based out of New York, so shipping to Canada is a little bit more expensive because international shipping is always a nightmare. I'm sorry, guys, for that. But I do encourage you to get together with some friends because it does cap out eventually, and if you get like 2-3 guys, together on an order, like it becomes regular shipping prices.
Sweet.
Just so they keep in mind. So I don't want people to get blindsided by international shipping. Oh no. But yeah, as a kind of a close off, I think part of what makes this useful for me is it's a hobby everything I do is hobby centric and functional. As a filthy casual, I've got cast a wide net and things that I want to work on. Even though I hate cricks, I love drawing in their style. So I'm just happy to work on that as I am to work on my circle stuff or Kelly's conversions. Actually, she works on conversions most of the time.
Filthy casuals.
Right.
Awesome. And what is your website, Dan, just so that if you're looking for it, folks, and you're waiting for us to say it, what is it?
Oh yeah, right. It is TectonicCraftStudios.com. That's Tectonic as in plates, craft singular, studios plural.
There you go, folks. Go check it out, please.
I will also put it down below.
It'll be somewhere for you to look at stuff. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the lightning round. We've done perfectly on our timing this evening. Dan, this will be your first lightning round. The lightning round is 10 difficult questions for War Machine. We don't have a Minty Fresh question tonight because I have been so busy I forgot to contact Minty. But the way it works is you need to buzz in if you know the answer. It's, of course, the three of us here. If you are on the stream, feel free to answer as fast as you can. Maelstrom will try to keep track, and sometimes we have little nifty prizes. We don't have one tonight, but sometimes we do. So it's good to keep in practice. So, Dan, if you know the answer to the question, just go, and because you're the guest, I usually just defer to you first. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Question number 1. What is the speed of the Siege Animatrix? Okay, go ahead.
Gonna say 5.
It is 5. Very good. What type of weapon does a Blightness Legionnaire use? I'm going to go with Dan on that one.
Miss Claymore?
No, it's a great sword. Great sword is the answer. What Cadoran caster holds the title of Supreme Commandant?
I'm gonna say Eris.
It is Iris. Very good. Question number 4. How far must a model move during a charge to gain a boosted die? Dan.
3.
It is 3 inches. Very good. Question number 5. What is the range on a gun mage's Mage Lock pistol, assuming he has his snipe ability?
14.
It is 14 inches. If a model has the ability Weapon Master on its melee weapon, what does it gain?
An additional die.
An additional die. Very good. 2. 2.
Oh, 2 damage rolls.
Very good. 2 attack damage, yes.
Yes.
Question number 7. How many boxes... This is a tough one, gentlemen. How many boxes does a Griffin Myrmidon's field generator shield have? Dan.
6.
It is 6. Very good. Dan's
good job.
kicking your ass tonight.
Yeah, I was thinking 10 too.
For a first timer, he's doing pretty good, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, question number 8. What does the spell Quicken cost? Maelstrom?
2.
No, it is 3. It is
Damn
3.
it.
What is the standard melee range on a gargantuan?
2 inches.
It is 2 inches. Very good. Question number 10. This is for the Crix players out there. Name the 2 Crix Colossals.
I'm gonna name them both Barry.
No. Give them the name, the title, the name they have on the card. What is the name? Go, Dan.
Got it. Sepulcher and Kraken.
Very good. Dan
Sepulcher,
wins
that's all.
his first lightning round, ladies and gentlemen.
Good job,
First
Dan.
timer on the
Dan.
show. Kicks ass. That's straight up how it goes. All right, ladies and gentlemen.
Before now.
Well, it's been an incredible night. Thank you so much for joining us, Dan. We'll definitely have you back on the show. We will see you at a con, guaranteed, and I think we'll get you on live. And because we got a million more questions to ask you. PG Semi-Auto Magic, what events do we have coming up?
This weekend here in the Ottawa Meta, we're looking at the 23rd is an escalation event. So it's a normal steamroller. There are rumors because of what's going on in the world that it will actually be a Mark 2.5 event.
Cool.
So Mark 2.5 is basically things like pre-measuring, the power-up and stuff are actually in the event. But the big thing about an escalation tournament is you start at 25 points and your final game is at 50. So every round you add more to your army. It isn't a different army. It's a single list, but it gets bigger every turn. On the next day, on the 24th, which is the Sunday, we have our Devastation release part 2. So in the original Devastation release, it was limited to hordes only because that's what was in the coin kit. But in our part 2 of the release, as we always do, we're going to do both War Machine and Hordes. Tony is running that, and so it should be a really interesting adventure.
Yes, if you've never gone to an event run by Tony, totally worth going.
Yeah.
Oh, heck yeah.
You're going to have a good time.
You may or may not need pants for that one.
Yeah, fair. You should
Pants
wear
optional.
pants.
You
Tony's
should
running.
wear pants. but-
Okay, other things that you guys should know that we now have Moose Machine t-shirts available. If you text us on our Facebook page, page and tell us the size. They are $20 a piece and plus shipping, but we'll send that information to Maelstrom. If you are a big enough fanboy that you really need a t-shirt,
You got it.
you got it. We'll figure out how to get it to you. Please, 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 please buy all the cool stuff you can from Dan, because Dan makes cool stuff and we want him to keep going to cons with us.
Me too.
And Dan, thank you very much. As I said, there's going to be so many more questions, so we'll try to hook up with you at the next con that we're all at, probably the SOO next year, if not Lock and Load or something along those lines.
I will be at Lock and Load, and I will be at. There is a tournament in Rochester, I think, this summer. I heard mutterings about it. I'm not sure yet, but any big tournament in Rochester, Buffalo, I'm going to be at. I'll be at Food Machine.
Ooh, yeah, that might be amazing. Do some Food Machine in November.
And important to know, Dan really likes steamed buns and beer. So if you want to make friends and influence people, that's what you do. Just show up to his table with steamed buns and beer. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. If you want to find more about this Deathclaw Cast 60 Minutes, we are part of the Moose Machine Network. You can find us if you just type in Moose Machine anywhere. That Google will send you to our Twitch feed, our Facebook page, our YouTube page, our SoundCloud. We are a proud part of the Muse on Minis network. We are also brought to you by Muse on Minis, so go visit the guys at Muse on Minis. They are fantastic too. And finally, we would be remiss if we did not remind you about our local gaming store. Our local gaming store is the Wizard's Tower. They support us. They make this entire podcast possible, and they are fantastic people. I believe they carry some of Dan's stuff, so check it out if you get a chance to go there. If not, we'll make sure that they do start carrying some of his stuff.
Secondly, they have all kinds of stuff as well. They do board games and Magic and everything. I was, strangely enough, in there today purchasing a single Magic card.
What the hell were you doing purchasing
How
a
did
Magic
you get enough
card?
money for a single Magic card?
So you saved up 10,000. That's all. That's Maelstrom's t-shirt
That's all
money.
Maelstrom's t-shirt money. No, apparently
bitch.
for some weird set they had in the past, they made very large cards of some versions of them, and I am turning one of them into a full art Darius card.
I feel dirty just sitting next to him.
I know.
Playing. He's going to be one of those guys.
No, I'm not playing Magic.
No,
I'm
you're
turning
playing-
it into a War Machine
You're
card.
not playing Magic.
Oh, shut up, you.
All right, guys. So please check out Wizard's Tower. They do have an online store. They carry all kinds of stuff. They have a full line of Privateer Press stuff, and they ship all around Canada, so please check them out. They carry some Magic the Gathering stuff, too. We shouldn't make too much fun of Magic the Gathering, because, my God, they carry it all, and they are the source for Magic the Gathering. All right, guys, that's it for me, the Myth Gorax. I'm going to say goodnight. I'll pass it off to PG Semi-Auto-Magic. Say goodnight, PG.
Good night, everybody.
Maelstrom, say goodnight.
Good night.
Dan, any last words?
Stay casual? I don't know.
Dirty, filthy, casual. That's it for us.
Yeah.
Play that theme song.
Thank you so much.
Dice down. Moose Machine and This Deathclock Has 60 Minutes is a proud part of the Muse on Minis network. Podcasts go online every Thursday morning. You can watch the show live every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern on Twitch, and keep in touch with us on our Facebook page. Just Google Moose Machine. If you can't find us, you're doing the internet wrong.